Alright, we made it back to Elfheim, and there's a reason I came here instead of going to Cornelia, where we could probably get a cheaper stay at the inn. What I want to do is sell off the Werebane. We're not going to need that anymore. And the leather shield, because we don't need that at all either. And then I want to get our remaining level 4 spells that we don't have yet. We've got plenty of gil, so we can do it. So let's go ahead and get up here first. Alright, black magic. We still need one spell for Carl. Let's go ahead. We'll give you... I think we'll give you Muddle. I think Muddle will work. And then Jill, you still need one more spell as well. So we're going to give you... Why not? We'll go ahead and give you Vox. Won't be useful if you end up getting Silence instead of Jack or Carl, but it's still useful to have. And then let's restock on healing items here. Potions! Can we go ahead? Yes, let's go ahead and max out, get a full 99 potions. Antidotes, let's go ahead and max that out as well. Not that we really need it. Tent, let's just go up to 5 tents. And cottage, we'll go ahead and get an extra cottage as well. Gold needles, we'll go up to 5 of those. And stick with everything else we have now. We don't have enough to get too many level 5 spells, but we have enough for 2 of them, so that's good at least. Once we get back to Melmond. Alright, let's go ahead and, first off, I need to go ahead and resort my items here. There we go. And let's go ahead and stay at the inn to heal up. Kind of made it, here on the skin of our teeth. But we didn't really lose anybody. I had a couple times where somebody got KO'd in battle, but I just soft reset the game and reloaded the memo save and was able to continue onward from there. Yeah, you can see, where we were at the end of the Terra Cavern. And here we are now, back in Elfheim. So now we need to go back to Melmond to pick up a couple level 5 spells and see how it's changed since we killed the vampire. They seem to think the vampire was the source of all their problems there, but we got a hint that it may not be by that the evil emanating from the steel plate behind his lair. We need to get up this way, and if we end up in some fights, you'll see how much better the coral sword is against aquatic monsters. We got 4 Sahagan here to deal with. Candle does 91 damage. Carl got a critical hit, so he's able to take one out. Jack does 84, which is pretty good. The Sahagan are aquatic monsters, so the coral sword does extra damage against them. It'd be even better in Candle's hands, but we're gonna leave it in what's his name's in Jack's hands. Got some privateers here. I think they have a chance to drop a scimitar or a saber. But I think they're like the only monster in this game that does that. And maybe not even in this version. Yeah, it was, I think, Final Fantasy II that introduced the ability for monsters to drop items after combat. Alright, so back in Melmond. A vampire is dead, yet the earth is still decaying. Its verdure vanishing. So yeah, it was not enough. Wait, can you be the Light Warriors? Yeah, he's got an idea now that we're doing stuff in here. So Titan in the Rock eats caves. We now have the Star Ruby. That's going to be great for us. This here Melmond used to be known for its beauty. So yeah, you tell us about the thingamabob, the Terra Cave. I don't know why I stepped in here. That wasn't what I meant to do. I wanted to go for black magic. You might think I would go immediately for the Life 1 spell, but no, actually we're going for Fire 3 instead. And... hold up. Can Jack do level 5 spells? Jack cannot do level 5 spells. Okay. So So we're not going to give him level Fire 3 yet. Let's go ahead and go here. And again, you might think I would go for Life 1. If we were playing the Pixel Remaster, I would, because you could assign, which slot that went in. Instead, we're going to do Cure 3. Dia 3 would also be useful in the upcoming boss fight, but not much beyond that. So I think we'll do Life 1 and Heal 2. We'll leave Life 1 for last. Alright, and with the last of our money here... nobody else here has anything else new to say, right? Even with the vampire gone, the earth continues to decay. Could this mean someone else is behind it? I wonder. Alright. These guys here, yeah, they just talk about the ancient civilization. Alright, you... Old man named Sada, that's where we need to go next. Alright, so... anything worthwhile here? Longsword. It might be worth getting 2 longswords. You know what? Yeah, we'll go ahead and get 2... No, not 4. 2 longswords. And this is why the coral sword is not really worth keeping. So, we lose accuracy, though, for 1 point. You know what? For 1 point of attack, I just wasted my money on those longswords. I did. I wasted money on those longswords. That's the bad thing about this, and they're only worth half as much as they were. So I recouped the cost of one of them, but we lost 150 or 1,500 gil. So that's a bad thing. Is it tells you it's more, it's stronger than the swords you have equipped, but it's focusing. The optimization focuses on attack power over accuracy, and sometimes accuracy is more worth it. All right, silver armlet might be worth it though. I think the silver armlet is worth it. We'll go ahead and buy that for Carl. All right, over the copper armlet. Yeah, that is an immediate and good upgrade. All right, let's go ahead and sell that copper armlet. There we go. And we'll go ahead and heal at the inn as well, so that we don't lose any of this progress. Alright, 100 gil per day. Or per night, rather. They got 2 rooms here, but we still only used the 1. I like how they got the cobweb in the corner of the lobby there, as kind of a nod to how dilapidated things are in Melmond. With the decay, the earth decaying around them, slowly spreading outward from the earth cave, the Terra Cavern. All right, so now it's time to go feed a Titan. Now we actually have a reason to go to the Titan's cave. We need to pass through there. Enemies strike first, but it's just shadows, so we can power through this even if they blind everybody. Alright. There we go, 1 shadow down. We don't want to use magic. We want to hold off on that until the bottom of the Terra Cavern, if we can. That's where it's most useful. Especially that Fire 3 spell. Alright. Next round or 2. No, we should be able to do it this round maybe. We're lucky. There we go, good. Made it through, no problem. Alright, Ogre Chieftain and Ogres. How many Chieftains do the Ogres have? Because we're running into a whole bunch of them. Sometimes even together. I don't know. You know, it feels like almost any ogre can call themselves a chieftain. All they need is like somebody to follow them. All right. Through this pass here to get back to the Titan's Cave. And good old Titan loves his star rubies. So we'll feed it to him here in a second to get him out of our way. We'll give it to him. Because we need to get past him to continue onward. You know, this is why you have to backtrack out of the Earth Cave. Because the Star Ruby is found in the Vampire's Lair, and you need the Star Ruby to get past Titan, and you need to get past Titan to get the item you need to continue deeper into the Earth Cave. So yeah, this is the only dungeon that requires you to backtrack out. You know, there's others you can definitely do it. You know, they're designed for multiple trips. They're designed for at least a second trip. But this is the only one that requires it. Is that Star Ruby? Give me that and I will let you through here. Alright, it is yours. Crunch, crunch, gulp. Nothing better than rubies. And so he just walks off into the distance. Which makes sense in this version of the game. Because he's off camera. However, Game Boy Advance, PSP, Pixel Remaster are all designed for wider aspect ratios. PSP and Pixel Remaster, you know, wider than Game Boy Advance. And, you know, as soon as he's off camera, here, you know, that's where the edge of the map is. So he literally phases through the wall in those other versions. They don't show him, like, leaving the cave out of the way, you know, any other way. He just phases through the wall and continues west until he's off screen. Which is really kind of stupid, but, you know, they should have shown him either expand the map and show a passage off that continues off screen there that you can't access, or they should have shown him going north or south until he's off screen. Ideally north, because that's where the exit is. So it's like, oh, he went outside for a bit, you know, to the overworld. Whereas to the south here, which is where we're going first, it's kind of a dead end with a room with some extra loot. And if you don't, like, show him in there or whatever, where did he go? You know, but when he passes off screen, it's kind of implied, oh, he just kind of went somewhere else. Alright, but here we got a great axe, some gil, some more gil, and a mithril helm. These are good upgrades for Candle. So the Worm Killer, the Great Axe, we lose a bit on accuracy. But we gain 3 points on attack. So I think this might be worth it. We lose a bit on accuracy, but we gain more points in attack, so we deal more damage. So that is a better upgrade than the Longsword was. And then the Mithril Helm is just a straight upgrade. You know, higher defense, higher evasion. Alright. Now we gotta continue north to get out of here. And we do have to pass, you know, we do have to make a second trip through this cave. It's not really, I mean, technically you are backtracking, but, you know, you do have to make a second trip through the cave, but it's, again, a very short cave. You know, it only has one chamber for loot off the beaten path, and it's almost a straight shot, like the exit is, like, right next to the entrance almost. There we go. Now here's the exit. Okay, now we need to continue through this winding mountain pass to get to that cave down south. That's Sada's cave. Or the Sage's cave. Oh, enemy strike first. Please do not paralyze my entire group. I didn't do a memo save. Ah. Okay, I think we made it. Alright, you two are just gonna run. We're not gonna waste our magic on these guys. If we manage to run, great. If we don't, we're gonna continue with that pattern. Alright, good. And we're definitely gonna do a memo save now that I know these guys are still around here. There we go. Yeah, the Sage's Cave. That's the area we're in now. Seriously, one freaking tile. I stepped one tile, and now we got ambushed by a bunch of shadows. Well, shadows we can deal. It's the wraiths and ghouls and ghasts and so on that I'm always worried about. Because if they manage to paralyze the entire party, we're stuck, you know, unable to do anything until either the party is dead or somebody pops out of it. Alrighty. Just gotta deal with all these guys real quick. Go, come on. There we go. All right. So now the Sage's Cave, where they reuse Matoya's Cave theme. So yeah, this is just an empty room. There's nothing in there. Here, however, we have Sada the Sage. The vampire was a mere servant of the real culprit blocking the flow of the Earth Crystal's power. He's hiding deeper down. Take this staff and use it to probe beyond the vampire's chamber. Alright, so we must do that with the Earth Rod. Bless the crystals. I hope to indeed. Alright, pretty soon we're going to end up with a problem that's been endemic to Final Fantasy I since this remake. At least here in the West. In Japan, it's been endemic probably since the Wonder Swan Color remake, which this was based off of. I think. Well, I know this was based off of that, but I don't know if some of the change I'm talking about was in that version or not. I think so, but I don't know for sure. But considering like the tile sets and everything was based off of that version, tile sets and sprites and everything was basically ripped straight from that version. I'm pretty sure it was. And I'll explain more once we get to the bottom of the Terra Cavern, because then you can actually see what's going on. But suffice it to say, this game has more than 4 crystals. Everybody thinks of the 4 elemental crystals, but it has more than that. You know, I already talked about the black crystal in the Temple of Chaos, but there's more beyond that. But now we just got to get back down to the bottom of the Terra Cavern. And I could just cut immediately there, because you guys already know how to get through that dungeon up to that point. However, I want to show you how much easier the second trip through the dungeon is when you don't have to worry about getting all that loot. So we're going to keep to it. We're not going to cut away. You know, you're just going to have to sit through the backtracking, or if you really, really want to, you're on YouTube. You know, whether you're on your phone, your TV, your computer, tablet, whatever, you're on YouTube. You can just skip ahead if you want. Unless I manage to cut to the next video by then. No, I probably didn't. I probably have this in the same video that you're watching now. But we'll see. You know, it just depends on where I'm at in the editing. Yeah, I looked when I was backtracking out of the dungeon. It was about an hour and 15 minutes into the video I'm recording. You know, about an hour and 15 minutes into the recording session. And I usually try to keep my videos around an hour. Sometimes I'll cut it like 45 minutes, sometimes hour and a half, depends on how long the recording session was and what makes the most sense for where to break it. But I usually try to get them around an hour. I feel like that's a good midpoint. You know, so that I'm releasing videos at a steady pace and so on. You know, without them being too long, too short, what have you. You know, if I were streaming on a regular basis, it might be worth it to do, you know, release 2-3 hour videos, whatever the stream recording session happened to be. Because that's typically how long I record for, is about 3 or 4 hours at the outset. You know, 2 hours, you know, 2 to 3 hours on average. You know, either way would be good, but you know what? I think we're good. I don't have to worry about that. Let's just do a memo save. But yeah, I remember back when I first started YouTube, you know, it was 10-hour limits. You could get it extended to 15 once you've been on YouTube a little bit. There was 10-hour limits, and then it was 15, then, you know, 20 was the extended limit, with 15 being the default. And then they kind of removed it, and at that point, once they removed the limit, I think it's still like 15, 20 minutes, unless you verify your account. But after that, there's like no limit to how long the video can be. It might be 24 hours. It might not. I don't know. But either way, there's functionally no limit for most videos anymore in how long they can be. And around that time, I upped it to half-hour videos. But eventually I changed it to an hour because it made more sense with the types of games I was playing. And now typically I will also, for these longer videos, I'll do chapters so that you can like kind of skim through to get to the area of the video you need, if that's what you're looking for. You know, way back when I was doing 15-minute videos, you didn't really need chapters. It didn't really make a lot of sense because it was only 15 minutes. You could easily skim through the video. Even when it was half an hour long, you know, you could generally skim through the video. But when we're talking, you know, hour and a half long videos, yeah, chapters do make a little bit more sense to get you closer to what you're looking for. All right, let's go ahead and use a tent. I could use a cottage, but we didn't use any magic to get here, so we don't need to restore any of that. So let's just do a tent that should get us near, if not all the way to, full health. We'll go ahead and save. And then if we look real quick... so yeah, we're not quite at full health, but we're pretty damn close. Are you guys ready for how quick it's going to be to get through here, minus the battles? Alright, so we want to go east here. We got one fight. So it's pretty much a straight shot east and south to get to the next floor. Because we don't have to deal with any of the loot. We're not looking for loot. You know, we're not doing any exploratory search or anything. We're not looking for loot. We just want to power through these battles as quick as we can. You know, we could go a little bit faster by using magic, but we want to hold off on the magic because we want to reserve that for the lower levels of the dungeon, especially the boss of the dungeon. The evil that is emanating up from within, the one that is, you know, blocking and corrupting the flow of magic from the earth crystal and causing the earth to decay. The one that the vampire was likely worshipping, the one, or at least in service to. Alright, so there we go. That's the end of B1 already. B2 is pretty quick as well. We just kind of want to keep weaving back and forth as we work our way east and eventually south. We do have to deal with a little bit of poison after this fight, but that's fine. That's nothing. Not anything at all to worry or deal with. Alright. There we go, perfect. So that's some poison to deal with, but we'll take care of that soon enough. Alright, bye-bye, Cobra. Alright, let's go ahead and deal with that real quick. We'll go ahead and heal up, may as well, to max. While we're at it. Just go ahead and use all of our potions. We've got a shit ton of them. Antidotes too. That's why we did this in the first place. Alright. Is it... Well, we could have gone a little bit further south. We'll go through here. Got some cobras. I'm a little bit worried with how narrow this pass is. That it might be high encounter rate. It might have a high encounter rate. But I think we'll be okay. As soon as we get out of this tiny little pass here, though, tiny little passage, we just have to head south. There we go. Good, good, good. All right. So let's go ahead and pop a couple antidotes. Well, 3 of them, actually, to be specific. Don't need to worry about healing just yet. We'll wait for that on the next floor. Alright, not high encounter rate like I feared. But we did get ambushed by a pack of werewolves and warg wolves, which means more poison. Excuse me. Not great, but we'll deal with it. Soon enough. Just gotta slam through this fight. Come on, there we go. Only one person poisoned so far. There we go. Jill, who you gonna attack? Oh, I missed her attack. Wasn't paying attention. Alright, a couple more rounds and this fight will be over. Perfect. There we go. Good, good, good. Last one. There we go. Good, good, good. Made it through. Let's go ahead and heal up. I was going to wait till the end of this floor, but we may as well max up our health since we have plenty of potions to spare while we're taking care of that poison as well. Alright, antidote, poison, cured. Alright, now it's just a straight shot south and wrap around to the east and we'll be down to the 3rd floor, the vampire's lair. Where we no longer have to deal with the vampire, but we still have to deal with cockatrices, and surprisingly enough, pisco demons are now appearing as regular monsters. You know, not on encounter point and not on encounter points either. Just regular random battles. I encountered a few on my way out last time around. And I don't know if you can run from them. It's like a very low chance to actually successfully run from them, I think. Alright, so with that, we will go ahead and pop a memo save here. And circle around. Okay, wargwolves, werewolves, let's just pound through with melee attacks. You know, the only ones that are super effective are Candle and a little bit for Jack. So it takes a little bit longer than it could have if we had like a bunch more warriors and monks and stuff like that, but you know, it is what it is. Like I said before, we could speed this fight up by, you know, throwing out a couple Fire 2 spells or whatever. but I want to hold off on the magic as much as I can. Save it for the boss fight. You know, if this were the Game Boy Advance or PSP version, then I would... if I was playing by myself, honestly, I would just ram through with melee attacks, but for YouTube, I would probably use more magic, because it's a lot easier. You're not restricted to spell charges. You know, every spell costs MP. Each mage has an MP pool that they can dip into, and you have ethers that you can buy and find in chests to restore that. Ethers do persist in the Pixel Remaster, but they only restore like one spell charge per level, and they tend to be a bit more expensive. You know, later in the game, you can just grab ethers like crazy as well, even in the Pixel Remaster. But, you know, magic just gets a lot more useful, you know, after this version of the game. This version of the game, the NES version as well, again, the magic system, the way it works is just so restrictive that unless you're making constant trips to and from the inn or carrying around a lot of cottages, to heal up on the overworld, you want to save your magic for like boss fights. Really, you don't want to be using them you don't want to be using spells willy-nilly, which means your mages go underutilized throughout much of the game. But I mean, it does add to the challenge. All right, so here we got mummies, which could send you to sleep, which works just like paralysis. Your character is asleep for a certain number of turns. Randomly they'll wake up, stuff like that. So we could be stun locked here. So we're going to have... yeah, we're going to have Jack pop off a fire 2. And we're going to risk it with another fire 2 to try to take care of these guys. So just like paralysis and blind and silence, sleep does not persist after combat. But yeah, mummies, they count as undead, so they're weak to fire and Dia spells. Alright, so we made it through. Let's go ahead and pop a memo save while we continue around the spiral. Alright. Got a couple of wraiths to deal with. One simple paralysis. I forgot that these guys paralyze us. But the other one's not going to prove too much trouble. You know, one isn't going to be an issue. Now, if another one or two of our characters get paralyzed, then it could be an issue. But it's not going to happen because the fight's already over. Alright. We're almost back to the Vampire's Lair. Yeah, see, here we have Pisco Demons. Alright, so I'm going to pop off an Ice 2. You are... excuse me, I just had to cough there. You are going to... you know what, you're going to use a potion to heal Carl, because he could still take a walloping here. And we're going to pop off an Ice 2 as well. I do think Fire 2 tends to be more effective, or maybe Bolt 2 tends to be more effective against these guys. But with a couple Ice 2s, and then an attack from Candle, ooh, that is rough. We should be okay here. Except Candle missed. Alright, let's go ahead and attack. You're just going to straight up and attack. Let's do a potion on Jack. Do another potion on Jack. Alright, even Jack should be able to one-shot these guys at this point. So as long as Jack and... yeah, there we go. As long as Candle doesn't miss... good. So the fight is over. So yeah, like I said, Pisco Demons start showing up as regular regular enemies now. They're no longer bosses. They were basically a mini-boss. And mini-bosses in this game can show up again in regular random encounters. Major bosses will not. Like, you're never going to see Astos in another fight. However, I will say that there are monsters very similar to Astos. Remember, he was the king of the Dark Elves. So we do end up facing off against Dark Elves in this game as regular enemies. Although I don't think they are ever called Dark Elves in any translation of the game. In the NES translation, they're called just Wizards, I believe. Alright, let's go ahead and pop another memo save real quick. Because we're almost to the vampire's lair, which means we're almost to the next level of this dungeon. Using the Earth Rod, which will just forever sit in our inventory unused afterward. It never gets used again. It's only used for this. But hey, most of the key items in the game only have one use. Like the Mystic Key never gets used again. You know, we used it to get into all the doors in the early dungeons and areas and stuff like that to get the loot, but it never gets used again, to my knowledge. You know, as I explained when we were dealing with the getting all the Mystic Key loot and stuff like that, you know, the way it works, it never asks you to use the key. It just automatically unlocks the doors that were previously locked and required it to open. You know, they just automatically open whenever you touch them, just like regular doors at that point. There's really no way of knowing, outside of maybe playing a randomizer, whether or not any of the doors in the future, you know, in the game past, when you you know, leave the Aldean Sea, are flagged to be locked by the Mystic Key. That wasn't the one I meant to use, but I'll go ahead and take it. So outside of using a randomizer, because you know, have to use the Mystic Key in order to get the stuff you need in order to leave. Oh yeah, we have to go into the inventory to use it. Like, there's really no way to know. Alright, so we want to go to key items. We have the lute, a most melodious musical instrument, the crown that shimmers mysteriously, the Mystic Key that opens magically sealed doors, and a rod imbued with the spirits of Earth. Let's go ahead and use that. And that removes the stone plate so we can continue deeper into the Earth Cave to B4, which is the last floor of the dungeon that has loot in it. It is again in 2 separate rooms. The main path works its way, you know, winds its way northwest. However, you want to go off the beaten path here immediately to the northwest. Because you actually kind of have to go south a little bit, but you want to go immediately to the northwest to get to one of the treasure rooms on this floor. Deal with these wraiths. And then pop a memo save, because, again, you're still going to see cockatrices and mummies and pisco demons down here, and even down to the bottom floor of the dungeon as well. And yes, there is only one more floor of the dungeon. Alright, so yeah, we're almost done with the Terra Cavern, as it's called in this translation. From the Game Boy Advance on, I think they just go back to Earth Cave. Alright. So up here, we want to make sure we pop a memo save. We go between these 2 chests to get both of them. Got a staff. And then... Alright. You know, it doesn't really matter. We have to... Oh, I think that was an encounter point. I was going to say we're going to have to go in front of that one. Yeah, this was definitely an encounter point. The Sphinxes here are encounter points. Sphinxes are a little bit tougher. They're not weak to anything, so we're just going to pound out physical attacks on them. So they have 228 health. Okay, and of course my heavy hitters just had to miss on the first round. Really wish I hadn't stepped on that tile. It's that damn bat that was in the way. So the design of the Sphinx is actually less like a Sphinx and more of a manticore. You know, when you actually look at classic mythology, a Sphinx had, you know, Egyptian Sphinxes had the body of a lion and the head of a woman. That's what people typically think of when they think of a Sphinx. But Sphinxes also appeared in Greek mythology, where they were kind kind of similar. But that looks more like a manticore. Manticores in Greek mythology have the body of a goat, the head of a lion, the wings of a bat, and the tail of a scorpion. And I happen to know for sure because my dad loves manticores. That's like one of his all-time favorite, mythical beast. So, he used to run, a company. The first time he kind of split off and became self-employed as a real estate appraiser, he called his company Manticore Appraisals because of it. Eventually business got bad enough he had to shut down, go work for somebody else for a while, and then when he eventually spun off on his own again, it was just, our last name and then Property Ventures or something like that. But, I found out about my dad's love of manticores and why he named his company that way when I was about 11, I think. Somewhere between 9 to 12 years old, when I received a book for Christmas, which was not unusual. I love books. I read all the time. But I received a book for Christmas called A Spell for Chameleon. It's a fantasy novel, and on the cover was the main character and a manticore. There we go. And I still enjoyed that book. Like, I still look fondly on that book. I have not read it in probably 20 years. I never read all of the books in the series. There's like over 30 of them. I read a good chunk of them. I read like more than half of them. I actually own at least 12 or so, I want to say. But I never read all of them. And then, unfortunately, the author is a little bit problematic nowadays. I don't know if there's like any direct controversy regarding him or not. Whether he's been very outspoken, but some of the book he's written feature young adults and teens and preteens in very compromising positions, including at least one scene involving sex with minors, I think. So yeah. Now, granted, I think it was like Stephen King and It, where all of the characters involved were minors as well. But like, seriously, I haven't read It. I've never actually read much Stephen King, but I've seen the movies and stuff. Like, who in their right mind nowadays, even Stephen King admits nowadays, if he wrote It today, he would not include that child orgy that happens, like, halfway through the book, I think it's supposed to be. I don't know. Like I said, I've never actually read the book. I have a weird relationship with Stephen King, and particularly with It. Because like I said, I've never really read much Stephen King. The most I've ever read was he wrote a short story retelling of Hansel and Gretel as a horror story. Kind of a way to show, like, you could turn anything to a horror story. I mean, Hansel and Gretel was originally one of the Grimm's tales to begin with, a German folk tale, and those European folk tales tend to be pretty dark anyways. In fact, one of them actually gets referenced later in this game with the mermaids turning to sea foam and stuff. But he made it like even darker and much more of a horror story. And then I started to read The Stand, but I only got about 50 pages into it before I dropped it, mostly because I had already watched most of the extended miniseries from the 90s, which nowadays would just be considered a straight-up series because it was only like 6 episodes long, I want to say. I don't remember. I don't know how long it was. But it was also an unabridged version of the book, which was like 1,500 pages long. So I kind of dropped it after like page 50. Because the miniseries was still too fresh in my mind, and I didn't even sit through the whole thing. I kind of just dipped in and out of it, not really knowing what was going on. Other than that, I've watched a number of Stephen King movies. Like I said, I've seen the classic miniseries of It. I've seen the new It movies. I haven't seen Welcome to Derry yet, but I've seen I'm blanking on the name right now. Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, the Haunted Hotel. Oh god, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, the Kubrick version. I'm blanking on the name right now really badly. And I have just let my party get almost completely stun locked, so we're going to try to run here. Why am I blanking on it? I want to say it starts with an S. The Shining. That's what it is. The Shining. So I've seen The Shining. I've seen Doctor Sleep. I saw Dark Tower with Idris Elba. Although I've never read any of the Dark Tower books. I've heard I would like them. Very much so. I really do need to read Stephen King at some point. And I need to get out of here. But I have a weird relationship with Stephen King because I saw the first half of It from the 90s with Tim Curry when I was 3. I saw it when I was 3. What had happened was my sister and I were over at a friend of my dad's was babysitting my sister and I. He had kids around my sister's age, and they decided they were going to watch It. I was 3 at the time. I had no idea what was going on. And as a result, I do not like clowns to this day. And I had nightmares, like recurring night terrors that would wake me screaming for like close to 10 years before I finally confronted my fears. Because what had happened was I saw the first half of It, which was the scary half, but not the second half where you see the giant spider and everything and how cheesy it is. Although, to be fair, at 3 years old, that probably would have scared the shit out of me too. But I saw that when I was 3. And I had night terrors with that for over 10 years about clowns and Pennywise and stuff coming to eat me. And was afraid to take showers alone for a while and stuff like that. I still don't like public showers at like public swimming pools and you know, youth centers, you know, like the YMCA and stuff like that, to this day because of that. And I still occasionally have nightmares. Generally, they end up turning into not nightmares halfway through, where I kind of make friends with Pennywise. But that kind of shifted when I was 14 or so. And I finally watched a DVD of It. I watched both halves and sat through it. And now I don't really have a problem watching that. Or like I said, you know, the new movies from a few years back. I really enjoyed those with Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. But you know, I still don't like clowns to this day. Which, again, oh my god. I don't know what they were thinking, letting me watch that at 3 years old. And even then, like, when I was like 4, you know, 4 or 5, my dad owned a small bake shop back in South Bend, where we lived at the time, South Bend, Indiana, which is where I was born. He owned a small bake shop called The Muffin Man in a building on Drury Lane or Mulberry Lane or whatever. So yes, I literally do know about The Muffin Man. It's my father. But there was, you know, they had the normal dining room for the bake shop, you know, for people to come in and buy like muffins and cookies and stuff and eat it there, and like coffee and stuff like that. But they also did like a lot of cakes and pies and cheesecakes. That was always my dad's specialty, was cheesecakes. Do I want to go north or south here? I think I want to go... it doesn't really matter. You can go either way. South is quicker. But they had a secondary dining room that you could reserve for parties and so on. So occasionally, because I was so young, if my dad had to take me to work with him, because my mom was at work or whatever, and you know, it wasn't a day where I could go to daycare, my dad would take me with him, and he would sit me in that secondary room and pop on a movie or two or something. And I remember watching Hocus Pocus so many times, and Labyrinth so many times on the TV in there. But in that secondary room on the walls, they had these creepy pictures of clowns, and it would drive me crazy and stuff like that too. So yeah. But I loved Hocus Pocus and Labyrinth so much as a kid. You know, The Labyrinth to this day is still one of my favorite movies. Well, Candle and Jack got paralyzed, so we're gonna try to run this next round, because I don't want to use magic if I can avoid it. It's like I could pop through without, but it's like we're gonna go ahead and heal everybody up. We'll go ahead and heal them to full. But with Jack being below 100, we definitely want to heal them to full. Or close enough. Alright, so now we want to go south, I'm pretty sure. The exit to the next level is like northeast of right where we were. Oh, shit. Is it worth it to try? You know what? I will have you two attack and you two flee. Okay. Good. And then Carl got us out of there. Okay. Yeah, so the last treasure room is right through here. Let's go ahead and save. There we go. Alright, it should be safe to go to the side of this one. And then I get into encounter right on that tile. And it's an encounter point. Excuse me. It's an encounter point with Hyenodons, a Ogre Chieftain, and Ogre Mages. Not great, but we should be able to power through. The thing to watch out for is the Hyenodons. I think they might have a fire attack that will attack everybody. And the Ogre Mages can cast Blink, or I think it's Invis in this version, on their party, which makes it really hard to hit them. And then ends up dragging this fight on. Yeah, Blink. So Blink is the enemy attack version of Invis. From the Game Boy Advance onward, I think it's just called Blink for the spell as well. But he also can cast Fog, which casts, inflicts darkness on the entire party. Well, up to the entire party. It could miss, as would happen with Candle. But darkness isn't usually an issue. But he can also cast Sleep on the entire party as well, which can potentially stun lock you. So spells bypass evasion, I'm pretty sure, because they pretty much always hit. But physical attacks are a bit reliant on the evasion stat to see whether or not they even hit. So with Blink active, he's got high evasion. So just trying to pound out spells here. And of course, darkness lowers your accuracy. But we made it through regardless. Alright, so we got a tent. We're going to go to the side here for a Mithril Shield. And 1250 Gil. Alright. Oh, a bunch of Pisco Demons. Let's go ahead and do some Fire 2s. Actually, you know what? We're just going straight up attack, straight up attack. Let's do a Null Bolt. Or no, let's try Silence to be safe. These guys are mostly physical attackers, but they do have spells. And then let's do an Ice 2. Because 4 Pisco Demons is still no joke, even at this point in the game. They might not do too much damage to Candle, but they can do a decent amount of damage to everybody else. And if they manage to gang up on everybody else... Oh, missed. Alright, well that's one gone. Alright, you know what? Screw it. Let's just straight up physical attack. We'll take the chance. Alright, that's another one gone. Alright, one left. Alright, we made it through. Oh, we're so close. So close. 2 Pisco Demons, just straight up physical attacks. Let's go. Let's go. We can do this. There's a straight shot north at this point to get to the exit to the next level. Alright. One tile away from the stairs. Oh, fuck me. Alright, let's go ahead and risk it. You're gonna run, though. And I think she failed on her run. But... nice. Kind of sucks we needed to use another fire too. I kind of wish Candle had gotten his attack off, or Carl had just wiped the map with them, but we don't have to worry about those guys anymore. Alright. Let's go ahead and heal. We're at the bottom level of this dungeon. So let's heal everybody to max. We're running low on potions, but we can get a whole bunch as soon as we get to our next town after Melmond. We don't really have a reason to go back to Elfheim at this point. You know, we'll make one more trip to Elfheim in a bit, but that's still a few hours out. Alright, so here you want to stick and wrap around to the west. If you go to those passages in the east, it's just a bunch of dead ends and loops. The actual goal here is, like, directly to the west. Did I do a memo save? I don't remember. I think we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll do a memo save as soon as we get into the next room. Out of these passages here. All right. Come on. Ah! We got poison. It's a bunch of tarantulas. There we go. One more to deal with. Oh, when I said one more, I meant more than one. I'm sort of not paying attention. All right. It meant that we had more than one to deal with, but I saw the one guy that was poisoned. You know, Carl got poisoned. So my words got mixed up. Another round or two of combat. Yeah, we should be able to do this in one more round here. There we go. That's the end of that fight. Alright, let's go ahead and deal with that poison, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. We'll hold up a second on healing. I want to do that in a specific place. So through this door... Alright. Let's go ahead and max out our healing. Because if you can't tell that this is the boss chamber, you got another thing coming. Alright. We have used 90 potions in this dungeon. But everybody's full up. We've avoided using most of our magic. We're good to go. So, here's the issue. There's a crystal back there. The NES version, the Famicom version, there's actually not a crystal on the altar or in the shrine. But I'll explain why there's an issue that there's a crystal back there after we deal with this boss fight. Let's go ahead and talk to this little orb here. Who speaks to me? I am the force withholding the power of Earth. Away with you humans! So now we have to face off against the Lich, the Fiend of Earth. As an undead, he's weak to both fire and the magic. So we're going to attack. We're going to cast Steel. We will go ahead and let's... I think he does Blizzard spells. We're going to start with a Null Ice. And we will cast a Haste. So Candle got his first attack off, so you see what, you know, unprotected or unenhanced, he only does about 40 damage. We'll see on the next round what he actually does. Yeah, Ice too. So I'm definitely glad I did that Null Ice to protect. Alright, attack. We will do the Steel Haste combo again on Jack. And here, let us go ahead You know what? Let's pop off a Dia 2. Dia 3 would be great, but we don't have that. Let us do... Oh, I can't do haste anymore. Well, that's fine. In that case, you're going to pop off a Fire 3. I could have gone back to get both spells out, have Jack cast haste and Carl do steal, but 115 damage, not bad for a Fire 3. 55 for a Dia 2. 236 there on the physical attack. Alright, only a couple more rounds to go. Alright, let's have you go ahead and cast haste on yourself. Let's pop out another Dia 2. I don't really need to worry about healing anybody right now. And let's do our other Fire 3. And it might be the end of the fight on this round. Yeah, because he only has like 600 HP in this version of the game. So bye-bye, Giant Lich. Oh, gotta love Amano's artwork there on the sprites. You know, they did really well translating his concept art into sprites. So here's the issue with the crystal there. We have another crystal in our hands. You know, the warrior there holds it out, and it's got a glimmer of the light, and so it kind of rekindles the light in the main crystal. So we're carrying around these crystal shards. Do they count as full crystals themselves or not? Are they literally shards of the elemental crystals? Or what? Because I'll tell you, in the original version of this game on the Famicom and NES, they don't have that. Instead, what seems to be implied is that the warriors are carrying around the elemental crystals themselves, or orbs as they're called in the NES version. And by placing them on the altars, in the shrines, that's what causes them to rekindle their light and recover everything they need. So yeah, this is the altar of earth from which the power of earth flows forth. And the light of the crystal has been rekindled. And if you look in our menu here, you can see now one of our crystals down in the bottom corner there is lit. It's always bothered me that they're not in the right order. And like, they're not in the order that the game expects you to rekindle them. Like, you have to do the earth crystal first, I'm pretty sure. I don't think you can get the canoe without having gotten the earth crystal. So it should be to the left. Then next it should be fire, water, wind. That's the order the game expects you to do it in. You can sequence break after getting the canoe. But it drives me crazy how they're never in the correct order. Because that order you see down there, and it's easier to tell on the Game Boy Advance, PSP, Pixel Remaster, where you can see what shade each crystal is before it gets rekindled. But that order down there, that's the same throughout all those versions. Now, they do a similar thing on the NES, where on the menu here you see the 4 orbs, and they kind of get lit up, but they're not shown in different colors or anything. They just have like different symbols on them, kind of, to denote like which crystal is which. It's never really clear fully which is which, but they do get lit up as you progress through the game, which I think is a nice touch. But it drives me crazy that they're not in the correct order from left to right. So I have no idea. Even if it was right to left, because I know Japanese is sometimes, it's usually read right to left. That would have been nice. But yeah, here we have a warp point that just takes us directly out of the dungeon. We don't have to backtrack ourselves, which is great. There's one of those in every altar room. So we are going to go ahead and use a tent here to heal and save. And then head back to Melmond and see what's going on around there. All right. I take it back. We will go back to Elfheim twice more, not just once. We do have reasons to go back there 2 more times. But it's going to be a little bit, I think. I don't know what I was doing here. All right, let's head back to Melmond. And I need to check and see how long I've been recording while we do. I got to remember, I still have to cut out like 10-15 minutes. from my initial backtrack out of the Terra Cavern. We were recording about 2.5 hours. So I think once we get to Melmond, we'll probably stop there before continuing onward. Alright. Yeah, we'll deal with the stuff we need to there, and then hit pause. Because I have other stuff I would like to do today. And I'll pick up recording tomorrow. Well, tomorrow for me. In the past for you guys. A lot of shadows to deal with. But yeah, I don't really think there's like any other backtracking we'll need to cut out in the game. There's like one... Well, depends on how you count backtracking. How many more instances there are. Because, again, you'll be going to dungeons and back to town. You know, when you leave dungeons like we're doing right now. We're technically backtracking from the Terra Cavern back to Melmond. So we can heal up and stock up and stuff like that. And we could end up in situations where we might need to leave a dungeon early. You know, it's no longer... There's no further points where it's mandatory to do that. But we might want to do that just because of how difficult the game is. You know, I'm not struggling too much anymore since we went off to that grinding at the Peninsula of Power. But, you know, it's still always possible. It's like one bad turn and you're screwed. That kind of thing. One bit of inattention and you end up getting soft-locked by a bunch of zombies. Or stoned by a bunch of cockatrices or something like that. So that's always possible. And then, you know, like I said, there is one more instance of the game that basically sort of forces you to backtrack in a dungeon, but you don't actually have to leave the dungeon to do so. And it's not very long either. But that's after the next one. You know, technically you'll be able to do it beforehand, but the order the game expects you to do it in is afterward. Because like I said, you know, basically at this point, all we need to do is go get the canoe and we can sequence break the game. Do the rest of the game whatever order we want. And I'll point out those points where you can, you know, do things like that moving forward. But we're going to continue in the order the game expects us to go. Alright. Almost to Melmond. Let's see how things have changed there now that we've rekindled the power of Earth upon the land. Now, I don't expect things to change immediately in terms of, like, you know, the Earth decaying and stuff like that, but they should at least notice some improvement, right? Alright. Bless the crystals. Wait, can you be the Light Warriors? Bless the crystals. I think that's pretty much all they say now. Titan in the cave, yada yada. Don't need that anymore. Aha! The Earth Crystal regained its shimmer. Okay, so he knows what's happened. This here Melmond used to be known for its beauty. Light Warriors, thanks to you, the Earth has revived. It's become so vibrant. It doesn't really look like it, but I'll take your word for it. Hiya, handsome. Okay, I already talked to you. An old man named Sada. I'm a farmer, and I'm real proud of it. You do you, man. Alright, Light Warriors, thanks to you, the Earth has revived. It's become so vibrant. And then these guys talk about, yeah, the ancients. Yes, okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and get some more magic. We can, at this point, actually, let's get life 1, if we can. Alright, so we are going to go ahead and... We're not going to have too much use for Dia 3 anymore moving forward, I don't think. So let's go ahead and do Heal 2 and Life 1. And then, can Jack do level 5 magic yet? Not yet. Oh, wow. Jack cannot do level 5 magic just yet. Wait, 10... Ooh. Can he learn level 5 magic at all? He might have to wait for the class upgrade. The class change. Oh, no, he can learn it. So maybe level 15 is when he'll be able to get it? Alright. Otherwise... You know what? We'll go ahead and give you slow 2. Yeah, we'll give you slow 2. And we'll give poison to Carl to fill out his slots. Now, he still has 1, but we want to save it for Warp 1. And we want to save Jack's last slot for Life 1. Because he can learn that once he gets the class upgrade. Alright, so we will have to return to Melmond at some point for those 2 spells. But for now, let's go ahead and save. Yeah, let's go to sleep and save. Alright. And that will be it for now. Next time we will adventure out from Melmond to the next town. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Please remember to comment, rate, and subscribe.